Hey, what's up, you guys? You're watching Team APS. So, as you guys know, the ban list actually dropped yesterday. Kind of just a random Wednesday evening. It just decided to update. So, we have a new ban list, and this is long overdue. I'm really excited to talk about this. I was really excited to see this. I'll just say right off the bat, I'm pretty satisfied with it, but we're going to go in a little bit of detail with each card and just talk about kind of like my thoughts, where I think things are going. We'll also discuss some of the cards that weren't hit that maybe people thought would be hit, and just some implications. So it might be a long video, but stick with me. As you guys know, I kind of can ramble, but I do think I have good things to say. So we'll just go right down the list. And if you guys want all the changes, I'll have a link in the description to the list itself, and I'll probably just include the changes in the description as well. So you can check down there. All right, so first card that is banned is Performapal Monkey Board. I think a lot of people figured that the Performapal engine was going to get hit in some capacity, and so this was how they chose to do it. I don't have a problem with it. I think, Monkey Board was just, the easy scale, the easy search. It added a lot of speed to, the Performa Draco Pendulum Pal mesh. So it was either going to be like this or something like Pendulum Sorcerer. Maybe going to like one. I mean, there are a lot of ways they could have done it. They could have banned Skull Crobat Joker. I don't know. But I don't disagree with the idea of banning Monkey Board. I mean, Performapals get new support, like, as, just the sets go by, being like the main character's sort of archetype. So, like, I don't know. I mean, there will be new Performapal cards, but I think that this is okay. This lets newer Pendulum decks thrive. We'll say, people won't be necessarily playing Performapals very much. I think though that I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but yeah, so that's the first ban card, and the second ban card is Kaiser Coliseum. So I have a couple of hunches as to why this card was hit. It seems a bit strange because this is a spell that wasn't like saying just loads of play. I mean, I feel like maybe 2 years ago, like in kind of Bujin days and stuff, people were a lot more like angry with this card. There's a lot more bitterness and animosity because it just slowed the game down. It was a really powerful floodgate. I haven't seen it played as much and definitely not talked about as much, so this came as a bit of a surprise to me. I think it could have either been because of the whole Monarch ruling discrepancy with like Monarch Stormforth, and like if I have a monster and if you have a monster or you don't have a monster, are you allowed to use, so like things like that. But I really think it might just also be kind of a pro pendulum move, like, well, Kaiser Coliseum could end up halting pendulum summons because your opponent might be locked out of that, and so that could be seen as a potential floodgate against pendulums, perhaps more so than Anti-Spell Fragrance, which is a card I was thinking may get hit, but spoiler alert, didn't. So that's all for the banned cards. Cards will always get banned. These two in particular are kind of interesting. It's weird, but they're both there. So next is we got limited. A lot of things became limited. So we'll just start with Seer. Seer was one that I was hoping would get limited. I'm totally okay with it. I think that the card added way too much recurrence to the Burning Abyss engine suite. I think at one it'll still be pretty functional. I mean, it can still do like a Seer Dante loop and just things like that. So it's one thing. I kind of was hoping I'd see maybe another Burning Abyss name on here, or maybe like, I don't know, it's like maybe something like Skarm, but it's not. So just Seer in terms of non-extra deck monsters. Next is Ether, the Heavenly Monarch. This is a card that, as you guys watch my banlist predictions, I definitely called it. I figure Ether should, have gotten limited or simied or something. The card's really strong. It's the OTK enabler. It puts so much damage on the board and it just gets you an Erebus to your hand after you get to summon it and attack with it. So, I mean, I think that this is totally fine. It's, I don't have any issues with this. Monarchs were getting pretty insane, so it's good to see like their boss monster get hit, along with some of their other cards that we'll get to in a bit. Next is Dark Destroyer. I think that everybody kind of saw this one coming. We were all wondering how else they might hit Cosmo, which there was like, I guess, another hit, but Dark Destroyer going to 1 is fine. It, to me, means that Cosmos will now have to kind of experiment with some other boss monsters. Perhaps Dark Eclipser or Dark Planet, but also just, maybe back to more Forerunners, more emphasis on Dark Lady. I'm not exactly sure how that will go, but I like it. It means that Cosmos can't OTK you quite so quickly and effectively. Instead, that they'll just have to sort of play control, and I'm okay with that because control means slower, means a little bit easier to handle. Next is Magic Spectre Unicorn Kieran. I'm just glad my Bunbuku didn't get hit. He's my favorite card, or one of them recently. But yeah, you know, Kieran, I think a lot of people saw it coming. Like the pendulum, just any pendulum mesh deck could just basically be like sort of a Kieran turbo. And Kieran, I've always sort of compared it to the new school Grand Mole in the sense that it just can really lock your opponent out and just answer any Xyz, any synchro. You know, it's kind of why like Compulse and stuff like that ended up on the ban list. It's just too easy an answer, too easy an out. And I think it's totally still playable at 1. I mean, you know, it's just that it makes it more of a decision whether or not you want to include that suite of cards. Like, do you want to run, you know, 2 or 3 Bunbuku and a Kieran? Is it worth the space anymore? Is it worth the potential sort of dead draw Bunbukus? I mean, technically Bunbuku can always search itself, so that's something, but that's not really going to get you anywhere if you're not running any other Magic Spectres. So I like the idea. I am not in opposition to it, so that's fine with me. I'm also glad this doesn't harshly hit the Magic Spectre deck. See, I feel like if they had somehow hit Bunbuku like some people were saying, then that would mean that the Magic Spectre deck would be less playable. So as it is now, the Magic Spectre deck is still, like, it can be a thing. But yeah, without Kieran, the Pendulum Mesh decks can't abuse that card anymore. Next is Beatrice. So I'm not going to lie, I really wish that this would have been Dante. I think a lot of people share that sentiment. It just feels like Dante is the problem card. I mean, Burning Abyss are going on their 2-year anniversary. Like, they just passed it. Remember, that deck came out in August 2014. I mean, like, and it's just still hanging around. I'm not going to complain. I'll take what I can get. I don't mind Beatrice being hit. I mean, of course, like, it was a problematic card. You know, it sucked for Farfa and other things to just be activated on your opponent's turn. And then, like, if you could finally somehow get rid of Beatrice, you just had to deal with Pilgrim. But I mean, there is still a Beatrice, and you still have to deal with it. I would have preferred Dante being at 1 because now because like, it's still very easy to just sort of spam Dantes. Sure, that's, I guess, the extent of what the deck can do, but I do wish it was Dante instead of Beatrice. And wouldn't be surprised if in later lists this basically gets inverted, where Dante may eventually go to 1 if it remains a problem, and Beatrice will just come back to 3 because, I mean, it doesn't matter if you only have 1 Dante. It's roughly the same thing. Next is Emergency Teleport. So, I guess this is a sort of approach of hitting Cosmos. I heard some, sorry. Yeah, this is a way of hitting Cosmos. It just it decreases the likelihood of them being able to see things like Tin Can so easily. It was always very annoying to have Tin Can activated during, you know, your end phase, like the Cosmo player activating it during your end phase. And, you know, getting all of the effects and getting the search and even being able to, like, banish. So, yeah, it kind of sucks that, you know, E-Telly did have to go to 1, though, because it does hurt, you know, the decks like Ritual Beast, the decks like Super Quantums that used to be able to use it for, you know, like their own little more modest purposes. And that's a little bit of a shame. I would have liked to maybe just see Tin Can itself get hit. But, I mean, I know there were builds that, like, only ran a single Tin Can, so who's to say what the right choice was? I guess this is just what Konami felt was best. It's a generic card, so I suppose it's better to hit that, sort of. I don't know if I can entirely agree with that. But either way, it's at 1. Funny enough, E-Telly found itself at 1 from Teledad format, and now it's back at 1 for, like, completely different reasons. So, E-Telly, very controversial card. Next is Pantheism of the Monarchs. If you watch my ban list predictions video, I called this one. I mean, like, I don't think there's a lot to say. It's just a broken draw card. It needed to go to 1, and that's fine. Pendulum Call was a bit more of a surprise. I think this card was limited in the OCG already, though. So it makes some sense that we would see it happen here. It is a little bit too much of an just instant engine starter. Like, you just get the Magicians. So maybe they felt that, you know, with everything else getting hit, that maybe Magicians would get too strong. So, you know, it's gone. I didn't play Odd Eyes Magicians, so I don't have, like, personal gripes, but I do know that for a lot of players, that was one of the most, you know, accessible budget but still modern decks that you could build. And it's a little bit of a shame to just see the card get hit like that, but You read the card and you realize why like that it deserves to get limited. It's not like it's banned. It's not like they don't have access to it at all. But yeah, it's the fair hit. Like in retrospect, I don't think it's too bad, or I don't think it's unjustified. And finally, the Monarch Stormforth, a card that I wasn't like super rallying around like, oh, let's get rid of this card. But I know a lot of people didn't like it, so I can deal. Like it in the Monarch deck is just overly powerful because it, the synergy the Monarch deck offers. I would argue that the Monarch deck was the problem, but I don't mind this happening. So whatever. I mean, like everyone hates losing their monsters to Ether and Erebus in their own turn and stuff. It just got a little crazy. So this card being at 1 is cool. I mean, like Monarchs can still use it if people are playing that after this, but yeah, it's still a usable card, just not a consistently usable one, and that's okay. The cards that went to 2. So Maxi, this is a strange one to me. I'm gonna go ahead and just say, like, I'm not sure I entirely understand. I think I get the thought process. I know most people typically only main decked about 2 of them. I mean, I've seen people main deck 3. Usually it was like, maybe you main decked 2 and you side decked the 3rd. Don't get me wrong, I understand how powerful of a card Maxi was, but I think if they wanted to make a dent, they might have just limited it instead of semi-limiting it. Semi-limiting has always been kind of a strange one in my book, because like so many semi-limited cards, just it's hard to say like how much that really hurts. Like semi-limiting parts of like a looping engine can affect like its sort of its steam and its continuity. So that makes sense for say Atlantean Dragoons right there, or something like that, Summoner Monk or something. But it's strange that Maxi was hit, so we'll just see. See what I did there? But yeah, like weird. I don't think it's gonna make a huge change. I mean, if nothing else, it means a lot of people are just gonna default to running Maxi because I guess it's broken. So why not run 2? Next is Thunder King Ryo going to 2. This is very exciting. This card has been limited for a long time, and I think it's quite alright for it to come back. It still doesn't feel like it's gonna be like a super powerhouse card. It can only negate 1 special summon, so you can't use it against a pendulum summon of more than 1 monster. If you were, in case you were thinking that this would be like an easy out to pendulums, it's sadly not, but it is a good way to sort of stun the abundance of just extra deck summoning in general, so that's not really a problem. It doesn't mesh well in many decks since the game has become so archetype centric, and I think that's what caused the fall off of a lot of cards like Gores and other things in general, Card Trooper and stuff like that. So the fact that it doesn't go into an archetype means it'll actually be probably kind of tough to run, but anti-meta and stun decks will appreciate this card being back at 2. I'm not going to complain. I don't think it's a bad thing. And next is Wind Up Magician, which I'm pretty pleased about. I've always wanted this card to finally come back, and so it is. And Wind Ups are more of a combo deck than some recent things, so they might actually be able to actually like sort of make a bit of a, I don't want to say comeback, I mean, but they can do some stuff now. They'll see Magician more, so that can ultimately mean more combos, longer plays. I don't think it's gonna be like meta or anything, but it's really nice, and maybe this kind of gives me a bit of hope that perhaps like Inzektor, Hornet, or Dragonfly may come to 2 one day. Like I'm not an Inzektor fan, don't misunderstand, but like it's been such a long time. It's good to see like Magician coming back, so why not some of the others? Maybe even Rescue Rabbit one day, who knows? And the cards that went to 3 are 1000 Eyes Restrict. I don't believe that's really going to affect too much of anything. It wasn't making a huge dent to begin with. I guess if you're running a Relinquish deck that wants to summon it, then that's a way to do it. I don't know. And also, Allure of Darkness is at 3. This was kind of a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, not like a huge surprise, but it's cool. The thing is, Cosmos can actually make use of this now, because I feel they'll be trying to replace, Dark Destroyer, maybe with Eclipser, maybe with Planet, maybe with Dark Ladies, and those are all compatible with Allure, and, through Allure and Cosmotown, you're able to still recycle a lot of your Cosmo cards. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not, Allure just kind of becomes a replacement card for Cosmos, and it's actually going to kind of just fast control variant or something. And there are other decks that can make pretty good use of it. I mean, Black Wings, that's like draw power for them. Dark Lords are like getting support, so maybe it can help with them. Dark Magician can kind of use it, I guess. And lastly is Gold Sarcophagus. This really surprised me going from 1 to 3, since it's always been a bit of a weird card, with like Necroface being at 2 and like Gold Sarc being at 3. It's a little bit like funky and weird, but this is really neat because this helps, you know, decks like Shiranui, decks like Ritual Beasts, and surprisingly decks like Cosmos, because even though Dark Destroyer is at 1, you could in theory use something like Gold Sarcophagus and just banish it and then use Cosmotown to get it to your hand pretty instantly. I mean, you know, that is not as optimal strategy, but it does exist. So there's that. Now I want to quickly discuss a few cards that were not included on this list that a lot of people thought may or may not have gotten hit. There are 4 major ones, and there are a couple of other things that I may kind of go over as I remember them. The first being Pendulum Sorcerer. I know a lot of people thought that Pendulum Sorcerer would go to 1 since it's a promo card in the Megatins. But I guess it makes sense. They just decided to keep the card at 3 because it sells the Megatins that way, and maybe they felt that Monkey Board and Kieran together would just hit the general sort of Pendulum deck enough for Pendulum Sorcerer to be fine. Now the kids can get it and enjoy it. I'm okay with it just being around at 3. It's whatever. We'll live. Especially now that Monkey Board can't just immediately like grab it. So I don't know. It's still searchable, but I get the idea. They needed to sell Megatins. Next is Solemn Strike. I know a lot of people thought this card might go to 2 and then maybe eventually to 1 to kind of follow the path that a lot of the other Solemn cards, or at least a Warning, have taken in the past. I'm okay with it staying at 3. It is still really expensive, but to be reprinted in the Megatins would make it, you know, it makes it much more accessible, much cheaper. People get a chance to play with the card. I think that maybe, like, you know, in a future ban list, I don't know whenever that'll be, but in a future ban list, perhaps it'll go to like 2 or 1. But for now, it's okay at 3. The card is very, very powerful. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, if it's in the Megatins, that's a really big selling point. So I guess it makes sense for them not to hit it. We'll live, you know, we still have like spell and trap removal. You can still destroy a Solemn Strike. Like, it's not like monsters that float. So not too bad. And the Brilliant Engine is one that kind of got away on this ban list. I know some people said that, you know, maybe it should get hit. Maybe they should limit Brilliant Fusion. I wasn't too big a fan because that hurts the actual Gym Knight players. You know, shout out to my friend Calvin. He plays Gym Knights, really good with them. And some people thought like Seraph Knight could just get banned. But it seems like they didn't feel the Brilliant Engine was enough of a problem. Will it be in the future? I'm not sure. Will new engines just kind of replace it and will it just kind of like fall out of relevance? I'm not really sure. I didn't like the engine, but, you know, it just seems like it's kind of going to hang around, and that's interesting. I thought it might get hit. Lastly, or at least for now, is Card of Demise. It's another card that, you know, it was controversial. I know a lot of people think that that card should get hit, but it's still here. I think we'll probably just end up getting another format or 2 of it, you know, and until people truly feel that it's like breaking the game, I don't think it's unhealthy or whatever where it is now. It's just because now we have Pot of Desires, so it's kind of like, you know, if you're running a fast-paced combo deck, OTK-ish deck, then Pot of Desires is, you know, the card for them, and then Card of Demise is for slower-paced stun decks, more rogue options, so not too bad, but the card will stay pretty expensive, and that's a problem. So hopefully they're planning to reprint it soon and make it a little bit more affordable, because right now the price is a bit high. So, and I guess honorable mention, I thought that Anti-Spell Fragrance might get hit. I guess you could say that Kaiser Coliseum, you know, took its place. I don't know. I mean, kind of like how Beatrice took a bullet for her lover. But yeah, so Anti-Spell Fragrance, you know, managed to stay safe. I thought they would hit it just being an anti-pendulum card, but it's still around. And that's it for the list. So cards, you know, just overall, I think it's a pretty good list. It seems to me as though Monarchs are definitely, you know, more or less out of the picture. They drop, you know, easily at least a tier, and that's fine. It was definitely my least favorite deck of the format. I'm a little bit unsatisfied with the Burning Abyss hits. I mean, I think most people just would have liked them to just end the nonsense and hit Dante already, And honestly, you know, maybe for good measure, even something like Scarm or banning Tour Guide or like hitting Terror Top. You know, I can deal with Beatrice being at 1. It makes the deck a little bit less annoying. Now I guess it just becomes more of a rank 3 toolbox, and that's not as strong a strategy, so it's alright. But they do still have, you know, Phantom Knights and Speedroids to, you know, cover the slack. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. I do think it'll still be a viable deck, but the loss of Seer kind of helps a little. They can still do a Dante Seer loop. We'll see, you know, we'll see. I don't think it's like off the competitive map. Not nearly as much as say Monarchs are. Cosmos are interesting too. I think that they will no longer be able to OTK you. I think it can still happen totally out of nowhere. But now it seems like it's more of a control variant. I think they're gonna have to experiment more with the boss monsters. You know, Forerunner might be making a return, like Dark Eclipser or Dark Planet even. I'm not sure. So it'll be kind of cool to see them also experiment with, you know, Allure and Gold Sarcophagus. You know, just these cards that really really turn it into a bit more of a control deck, and I'm okay with that because, like I said, control means slower and easier to deal with. So I don't think they're out of the picture either. I think Cosmos and Burning Abyss are not out of the picture. I think that they can still compete. They can still be relevant. I think that Monarchs definitely are going to have some trouble. And the Pendulum decks, it depends on how much your deck, you know, relied on like stuff like Kieran. I think Performer Piles will take a brief recession, but they might just pop back up. I mean, like they always get new support. So it's always been a mishmash combo deck anyway. So I think it will always hang on. It kind of reminds me of something like Plant Synchro in that way. So all in all, I'm just glad that we have a list. This format was getting very stale. A lot of YouTubers, we all agree, you know, it was really tough to create content without a new ban list. So over the next few days, I'm going to try to make as much, you know, exciting new content relevant to the next format. So, you know, some of the best budget decks for the next format, some of the, you know, underrated side deck cards for the next format, you know, and just other things like that. I think it's really great. You'll probably see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of ban list reviews. It's going to be cool. You know, prices are going to change all around. It's great. We finally get to enter this new era of Yu-Gi-Oh! With a bit of a clean slate, you know. So stuff I see, you know, being good moving forward. Obviously, Metal Foes are great. Obviously, Blue Eyes is doing pretty well. I'd like to see what becomes of something like Cyber Angels. I know we're getting like ABC Union stuff soon. It's going to be an interesting time. I'm really excited. Thumbs up if you're excited too, because we really did need this new format, this breath of fresh air. You know, make Yu-Gi-Oh! Great again. So that's the ban list review and discussion. I hope you guys liked it. Remember to leave your thoughts in the description. I think this will be a really interesting ban list to talk about. Everyone's got a lot of mixed opinions. You know, what decks do you think will be good now? What decks do you think, you know, of the decks that got hit, how will they cope? Which ones just won't make it? How are prices going to be affected? What do you like, you know, most and least about this list? When do you think we'll get another? Because, you know, who's to say? But anywho, this list goes into effect on August 29th, so it's going to be an interesting one. I'm like I said, I don't dislike it. All in all, I'm going to say it's like maybe a 7 or so out of 10, 7.5, maybe an 8, I don't know if we're being generous. So, not too bad. Thank you, Konami, for finally giving it to us. Remember to subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Trell and the twins will be back soon too, so be on the lookout for them. Alright, that's going to be it. I've gone on far too long. Remember to talk about it in the description, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! And I will catch you guys in the next one.